Hey guys, and welcome back to Remedy Reads, or welcome here for the first time. Today I'm filming my January wrap-up. It's my first wrap-up on my channel, and I'm actually pretty impressed with the books I read this month. Some were disappointing, some were unexpected, but I did discover a new genre and new authors that I really do like and will read in the future. So if you're interested in finding out what those books are, keep watching. Also, if you want to support my channel and see all of my videos, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you're notified every time I make a video. Also, feel free to like this video if you like to see wrap-ups and want to see more in the future, and leave a comment below if there's a book that I mentioned that you've read that you really liked, didn't like, or have a suggestion for another book based on that review. So, moving into the bookish goodness, let's get started. Okay, so I have my notebook here. I'm going to just have a image of the book up here because I am lazy and don't want to get all these books off of my bookshelf. So the first book that I read this year that I really loved, actually I finished it on the 30th of December, but I'm counting it because I want to mention it. Everybody has talked about it. It's won so many awards or picks of the year, and that is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. So that book was unexpected. I don't really like reading fiction about the Black struggle in America because it's hard a lot of times to live it and then read about it and then not feel like immersed in it. But the reason I wanted to read The Vanishing Half is because as someone who is biracial, the child of immigrants and first generation of American, I feel like there are a lot of ways that skin color plays into family dynamics, the way you're perceived in the greater population, how you're immigrant, nationality changes the way you're perceived. Even though The Vanishing Half doesn't really talk about that piece, it does talk about skin color and how skin color becomes very arbitrary, or it becomes a point of pride or progression. You know, I don't know if you would necessarily term it that way, but in the book it was certainly envisioned that way by one of the characters. I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.75 stars. Now, you're probably wondering, everyone else has given this book 5 stars. Why did you not give it that last 0.25? And the reason is because I wanted a different ending. I wanted it to feel different. And so this is a very personal bias because essentially it made me feel and think about things that I haven't thought about in a very long time. And I wanted it to end with more of a recognition by one of the characters. I'm trying not to do any spoilers here. I wanted more of a recognition or reinvestment from one of the characters that just seemed very uninterested in participating. And I think that is completely appropriate to the story. It just broke my heart. So yeah, so that's why I didn't give it the last 0.25. That's a very personal 0.25, but the book overall is excellent. The writing is excellent. I will read Britt Bennett in the future, and I will probably go and read The Mothers, which is also one of her books that is highly regarded. And the next book that I read, actually in January, is Outline by Rachel Cusk. So I've been in a very contemplative place in January, and I'm reading a lot of books that kind of serve that mood, and Outline is one of those books. This is actually a new author and a new genre to me, psychological fiction. I didn't realize that psychological fiction existed as a subgenre of adult fiction. So I didn't know there was a term for it, I should say. And so finding that these, it's kind of like a genre that caters to people who appreciate like observing humans, like slice of life kind of stories with a little bit more body. Really appreciate that. So I have another author on this list that I read this month that falls into that category, and it just really served the kind of contemplative mood I was in. But anyway, the premise of Outline is a young woman, or I should actually say a middle-aged divorcee who has 2 children. I believe she is from the UK in the book. She travels to Greece, Athens, to do a writing workshop, and along the way and during the course of the workshop, she engages with many individuals who are from and not from that city or that country, and it is just so... It's very character driven. If you are not into like character driven, contemplative works, this is not for you. I gave this book, 3 stars. The reason I gave it 3 stars is because I felt a little disconnected from the story. I think that was the way the author wrote, the way Kusk wrote this story. It makes you feel kind of to the side, like you are observing over the shoulder of her main character everything that's going on. And so I know that was the point, but it was still hard for me to like completely connect to these characters. But the observations that the main character made during the course of these engagements with these different characters, and the way it kind of made her think about herself and her position and what she wants out of life, that was excellent. That part alone was 5 stars. That part alone is why I will read Rachel Kusk in the future, why I will pre-order her upcoming book that I can't remember the name of, but I'll put it right here so you can go check it out. But I love that part. It was excellent. It was very well executed. And it was just incredibly interesting to see the way people can be perceived when you are living in a certain phase of life. And I just love that stuff. So 3 stars, I would recommend, even though I did give it a pretty middle of the road rating there. The next book on my January wrap-up list is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is my first book to read by him, but not my first book to buy. It is really easy to pick up his books secondhand, and I've heard such good things about his books. He's won a few awards, so I always pick up those books for a couple of dollars if I see them at thrift while I'm book thrifting. So I have 3 of his books. But Never Let Me Go was one that I've just seen pretty often, so I picked that one up first. I'm not going to give you too much about this book because I had this book essentially ruined. The twist in this book was ruined for me because I Googled something. My encouragement to you is be okay with being a little confused or off kilter or put off by the language that seems to be used weirdly or just not in line with its typical definitions, and just read through this book. I have seen this book get really high reviews and really low reviews and like just completely DNF'd by others who find this to be too like boring or too contemplative. And I think the point of this book is to give you a very sad, like heartbreaking perspective on the value of the human soul and like a consideration of like ethics and moral gray areas and things like that. I don't know if that's actually his goal, but that's what it did for me. It made me really think through like, how do I value certain things? How do I put certain things on pedestals or knock them off? And what is my reasoning for paying attention to some injustices or tragedies or just not giving others the time of day? So very interesting read for me, very clearly, and I gave that one 4 stars. It just really hit home for me in a lot of ways. The next book is actually the book of the month for the Remedy House Mental Health Book Club. So Remedy House is the other platform that I created, and it is focused on people who are mental health professionals, mental health influencers, somehow in the world of mental health and want to know more and become more educated and grow further in that realm. And so visit Remedy House if that's something that you are interested in. But this is the book club pick for February. And I try to read all of those book club picks a month ahead so that I can recommend good books for the future. And that book is Disability Visibility. And it is a collection of short stories that basically, each short story is written by someone who claims a disability in some way, and the way that their intersectional identities complicate that further, or just the way that they deal with this particular disability in their life and the push and pull of the world on those abilities or disabilities. And it is incredible. I will tell you something, like, as someone who I feel like I've had a larger exposure to the reality of disabilities, in the sense that, like, just their existence. So, like, through education, my mom is someone who deals with disabilities every single day in her work, and so as a child it was something that we talked about a lot, and in school in ways, and like in grade school, that was something that was really important to her, that I understood and was exposed to. And because I don't have a disability myself, I can't say that I have direct experience with the hardship, right? So that's where memoirs are really, really important, because these are own stories, and these are stories that are essential to understanding the plight of someone who's going through this. I'm sorry if you hear that. The garage door is opening and it's like right under my office. So sorry. But so that's why I chose this book to just read in general and consider for the book club. But why I have chosen it for the book club after reading it is because the stories are essential. Like, to me, this is essential canon for mental health professionals and people. I don't know if I would have been able to understand in such a personal way the struggle and the microaggressions, for lack of a better word, and the lack of accommodation that many people experience on a daily basis. And I think that experiencing that pain and terror and shock and, just the overall struggle is something that memoirs do so exponentially well. And this one was just mind-blowing in its topical discussion, but also because of how well done it was. There are so many different voices captured here, so many different intersections of identities captured here. This is essential reading. So 5 stars is the rating I give all memoirs, pretty much, that are, stated memoirs. I don't feel like you should rate someone who is giving their heart to you on paper. I feel like it's really important to consider the value and vulnerability of that. So I give all of my memoirs 5 stars, typically, unless there's something like exceptionally wrong with it or something, and then I might not even review it or mention it. But disability visibility is get it now. Read it now and forever, and keep it forever, and then reread it forever and ever. It is so good. Okay, so the other 2 books, I read them like as soon as they came to my door. So I was really excited about them. So they had a lot. I feel like their ratings convey the amount of burden they carried as far as my expectation goes. So the first one was Winter Keep by Christian Kishore. That one is a continuation of the Graceling series that is beloved in the book community. It is a YA series, and this features the continuation of Bitter Blue's story, and many of the characters in this book are from that previous book, of course. So I actually gave this book 3 stars, and I was a little disappointed in this book. Actually, let me back up. So Winter Keep, obviously the characters are going to age. That did not occur to me when I read this book. I was not thinking about how the characters were going to grow up. And so reading about more adult characters, I was like kind of thrown off. I was not in shock. I was just like, oh yeah, okay, adjust expectation. And then it took me a while to do that throughout the book. So that's the foundation of this review. So once I kind of got over that, I think what I didn't appreciate in this book is like how the characters were aged in their characterization. So like basically, I don't remember this being in the other books. It might be. I did not reread them. I didn't think that I needed to kind of pick up quickly on the premise of this book. And I don't think I needed to. But basically, the way sex and intimacy were used as points of characterization, in one way it was very relevant, as it indicated like hardship, it indicated like malformed attachment and stuff like that in particular characters. It indicated like the growing up of characters and maturation and obviously, you know, intensity of relationship and things like that. So in that way, I think it was fine. But I think also there were like ways that sex was engaged, intimacy was engaged, that felt like, I still am having trouble putting it into words, like superfluous or not as meaningful as I think it was intended. It felt very like, just like, let's make sure sex is in here somewhere, so I'll just put that in there. So it wasn't necessarily explicit on page sex at all, but it was just like it kept pulling me out of the story. So I'm still trying to find words after journaling about it, exactly what bothered me about the way sex happened in this story or was used in the story. But it just pulled me out of the story every time. And I think in the beginning it was because I was like, wait, she's, 16 and he's this old. And I was like, oh, okay, no, they're older now, So that was on me in the beginning. But towards the end, I was just like, okay, like, I don't know why, but I could not connect to those plot points as well. So I still gave this book 3 stars. I would recommend it if you love the Graceling series. I think Kishore does a good job of continuing the way she writes and the way she builds the story arc. And the story was interesting. I don't know if more books are going to come out of this, and I'm not sure if I would pick them up as quickly, but it was good. It was it's a fine read. Like, if you loved Graceling, I think you'll love this book. The final book that I read, that I finished this month, January, is Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. It's a short novella about a young woman, I believe, or a young girl. Her name's Sankofa. She essentially gains this power that makes her Death's daughter. She can kill very easily and sometimes too easily. To me, well, I gave the story 4 stars. It does make me want to read more of Okorafor's work. I loved her writing. I love how this kind of read like folklore and basically engaged a culture and the reality of humanity when it encounters people who are different or different experiences or power. So I loved how Okorafor explored those themes in such a short book. I think the book was a total of 150 pages, and those pages weren't like packed on a large page. It was a really quick read, and it was very fast paced. It was something that I found incredibly interesting to read, and just culturally speaking, I can't speak to like the realities of the cultures mentioned in the book, but it felt real. And yeah, I was really impressed with what she did with 150 pages. So 4 stars for sure for that book. So there are a few books that I did not finish this month that are going to be in my February wrap up that I really wanted to talk about this month, but I was shocked about some 3 stars and very pleasantly surprised about new genres that I appreciated. Again, if you are interested in reading along with the Remedy House Mental Health Book of the Month, Disability Visibility, please visit my Instagram and my website where it talks a little bit more about how that book club works, and you can check that out in the links below. But otherwise, I had a pretty good reading month. I felt like I was in a weird mood, but I feel like it was, it helped me discover other genres, and so I'm excited about that. So yeah, if you have any book recommendations, if you've read one of these books already and you want to tell me how you liked it or did not like it, ooh, sorry, leave it in the comments. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. I had so much fun wrapping up January, and I'll see you at the end of February.